Hey YouTubers, welcome back to Functional DIY. Before I get started, I just want to explain a little bit about this channel. Um, I tend to go pretty fast because I figure people want to get right into the build. I try not to waste time with pictures of my pets or other things that don't have to do with the creation of something. Also, the reason it's called functional DIY is because not always are my projects beautiful and perfect, like Jay Bates or April Wilkerson channels, but I do try to make everything functional. Although I love some Jay Bates and some April Wilkerson. That being said, my wife wanted me to build a rolling hanging file folder cart. And I had this mahogany, this door casing from that I picked up, and it had the indentations for the latches and the hinges. I ran those through my table saw and cut off the unusable parts, glued them up, and left them overnight. I've been using this glue, Titebond Thick and Quick, that I really like. It dries pretty quickly and it doesn't run. So I really like it. I've been using it a lot. After they dried, I ran them through my planer to make sure that the joints were nice and flat, make sure that I got all the excess glue, squeeze out, cut off. I had just chained to the blades on my planer, so it ran through really nicely and didn't leave any lines or tear out or anything. So it was very easy to afterward take my orbital sander, excuse me, and make it a nice smooth surface on both sides. So when you look at a hanging file folder cabinet, you see there's a gap between the railing and the wall of the cabinet so that the folders can slide easily. So I need to reproduce that gap, which means I needed to use a spacer between the board and the rail that I was going to use. So as you see the black rail here, I had found, cut some holes in it, and proceeded to make some spacers out of some dowels. So first I drilled a hole down the center of the dowel so that I could run a screw through it without splitting in half. And originally I cut these at about half inch, maybe 5/8 of an inch, but I did end up sanding them down to closer to about a 3/8 of an inch because that's all I needed once I started to dry fit everything together, which you'll see coming up. So once I had all the spacers cut out and cut to size, I installed the rail and made sure it was nice and level, which is why I have those lines drawn. Once I had it nice and level on both sides, then I was able to kind of dry fit the boards together using a one hanging file folder as a template for how wide it needed to be. So I have it hanging there. Once I got the width correct, I made marks on those boards on the end pieces so that I could cut that off. And then I started gluing it up. I didn't do anything fancy for these joints. I just did a simple butt joint, plenty of glue, and brad nails. As you can see, here's the joint after it's has glued up overnight. I may have put some screws, one or two screws in there. If you do that, make sure you drill pilot holes so that it doesn't split the end of the board there, which it will do easily if you don't drill some pilot holes. If you have any excess, which I did have a little excess, I think on the other side, I ran it through my table saw just to cut that off. And once I had it cut flush with the long side uh, wall of the cabinet, I sanded it down, with my orbital sander and some 180 grit sandpaper. For the bottom of the cabinet, I used a 1/8 inch plywood that I had laying around and just glued that on, screwed it or nailed it in with some brad nails. And then I took my router with a trim bit and I just trimmed that edge, as you can see, all the way around, nice and trim. And then I put a little piece of kind of a trim just to cover up that end grain of the edge grain of the plywood. I have the casters taped up, and you can see I've used wood filler to cover up any of the screw holes. Once I had all of that sanded down and dried and everything, then I proceeded to spray paint it, and I think it turned out pretty good. I didn't take any pictures of making the top. Sorry about that, but the top is also just that mahogany that I planed down, and because the desk is white on the bottom and dark stain on the top, I did the same for this. That's how my wife wanted it. So that top is attached with a piano hinge along the back, you can see, and it's just a flat board. I put a couple little felt, those little felt round adhesive pieces so that it wouldn't slam or close with a loud noise, kind of a easy closure. My wife liked it. That was the bottom line, really. So thank you for watching. I appreciate you taking the time. If you like it, click the like button, click the little bell there if you want to be notified for any future videos, and I'll see you on the next build.